Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harping on Rugby, where, with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. First up, joining me this week, we have someone making appearance number 43. Welcome back to Mr. Rich Mifsuds.
Good evening, Jeff. Good evening, Dave.
Good to see you. And the other Leinster fan joining me this week is earning his 7th cap. Hello to Mr. David Cordial.
Hello, Jeff. Good to be here.
Indeed.
And so this brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Rich.
Yeah, just a couple of observations other than what I've already mentioned. It was interesting to see Bath targeting Sam. They went for him 3 times in that first quarter alone. But we rejigged it, and they certainly that was it. It stopped after that. Those 3 attempts at. But the important thing here is he got clout, he got bowled over, but he got straight back up again. I mean, he's a big lad. He's not he's no shrinking violet, and that was very good to see. So just that observation. I already mentioned about our attacking shape and how much better it was. The only other thing I'd mention, and I'm And it was the selection for this match at the replacement fly half, and I just could never understand why Ross was getting the nod over Frawley. Frawley gets selected for the Six Nations Ireland team over Ross, yet he's not entrusted with sitting on at the very least sitting on the bench in a Champions Cup match by Leo. I don't understand it. I mean, I'm not going to proclaim that I know, certainly not know more about rugby and tactics and selection processes than Leo. And by and large, you have to trust their judgment, and I do. It's just that I fail to understand how. I can't reconcile it in my own mind, given what we've seen Kieran Frawley can bring to the party. And obviously this is nothing personal against Ross, not by any stretch of the imagination, and it should never be against any player anyway. But I really don't understand it. I really hope that at least Kieran Frawley gets an opportunity to play next week before going off on the Ireland camp. I mean, he's shown pretty much what he can do, whereas you compare that to Ross's style, and we've spoken about this previously. Ross is one type of 10, and Kieran Frawley is a different type of 10, as is Sam Prendergast. But there is more of a linkage between Sam and Kieran than there is between those two and Ross. Ross is a different type of player for a different style of rugby, and we're not playing that style of rugby at the moment. So why play him? That's what I can't reconcile. But anyway, enough harping on that. I just like to say that as far as in my own opinion, who should be the backs for Champions Cup, and that should be Jamison. Should be either Samuel or Kieran Frawley at 10. Lowe, when fit. Geordie at 12 has to play at 12. Ringer has to play at 13. Jordan Larmour at 14. He's been playing well. Hugo at 15, obviously. And the bench should be Luke stroke Gunn, Sam stroke Frawley, and Robbie on the bench. That would be my preferred options, I should say, for a Champions Cup match. But anyway, opinions are like castles, as everybody says. Everyone's got one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for, to give our opinion. There's been a lot of debate over the Leinster position. I mean, I was expecting Frawley to be involved myself. I thought he might even start this game. Like you say, with the Six Nations coming up. Apparently, there's been some issue online. Russ has been getting a lot of flack. Now, those people doing that stuff, they're not real supporters. I think they're like real supporters like us. We're we're just being honest about the players we want to see playing and who we think is good and who's not, and that that's all we're doing here. And I think we should, there's no problem us continuing to do that. What do you have, David?
I will. I mean, I've similar thoughts, but I will say I do agree with what Rich said at the end there. I understand the instinct of wanting to get as many of your best players onto the pitch at one time, but I do think there's there's a danger of disregarding how important positional play is, and for us particularly in the back line. Gary Ringers is a very good player, but I don't know that, and he's probably good enough to be a reasonably decent club winger, but he's not. He's a test level 13. He could be a 13 for the Lions. He couldn't be a winger, or he shouldn't be a winger. Even though I know Ireland have deployed him on the wing, I just think he's built. Maybe if that was a position he always played, it'd be different. But it's not. He's used to playing 13, and I think you do yourself a disservice, and you run the risk, particularly in a system that relies on players knowing their positions and knowing their roles and knowing where they need to be and when they need to shoot up, when they need to hold off, and when they need to be covering back. That kind of positional play differs, obviously, if the closer you are to the middle of the field versus the further you are out. So, for me, I would always prefer if we have wingers playing on the wings and centers playing in the centers, and if you've got an extra player, put them at 23. And if players miss out, they miss out. I mean, we're in the enviable position where we will probably have a center in that. If everyone's fit, we will probably have a center in the 23 jersey, because we have Gary Ringers, Robbie Henshaw, and Jordy Barrett. You really can't leave any of those out of a match day 23 if you're being serious about wanting to win matches. So I think you're always going to have those being 12, 13, 23, and it's just really up to you on the day who picks which shirt. There's a lot to be said, for deploying, and I know there's talk about Ireland or Leinster being under restrictions about when and where they can play the likes of Ari Snyman, but having him come off the bench is a huge boost for a team in the second half, particularly if you still have work to do. So having Ari Snyman in to bolster the pack, and someone like Barrett to bolster the backs, could be a live option as well. But I'd always want to, if it's Jimmy O'Brien on the right wing over an out of position center. Jamie Osborne's probably gone slightly better on the left wing, given that he has a lot more experience playing fullback. But I kind of even feel with him, it's a weird situation this year because we have Barrett on the 6-month contract, and it feels like you should play him as much as you have him. But in an ideal world, I would have James Law on that left wing. I wouldn't have Jamie Osborne there. I'd have him at 15 sooner, and you could trade off between him and Keenan. Keenan was brilliant. Osborne's shown that he's more than capable of stepping into that position. But yeah, I do think that kind of positional play is a lot more important, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes for England, given that there's talk that they're going to play, in light of how good Finn Smith has been over the last while, they're going to play Marcus Smith at fullback in the opening game against Ireland. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes, because I don't think, while it can work, and obviously Bowden Barrett has done it, Jack Hurley has done it, I think they might be selling themselves short in terms of some of the things that make a fullback that aren't just being an out half further back in the field. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, it's when you get the job done as effectively as Leinster got the job done in that game, it's hard to argue with it. It's hard to have too many complaints. Bath had a really rip-roaring start, but after 7.5 minutes, they only scored once in the rest of the game. That's a testament to the level the defense steps back up to. They will be annoyed that they had to step back up to it. There will be other games, another opposition who you won't be able to give a 7.5 minute 2-try head start to. But I thought the way they responded, the way they answered, and particularly like the variety of tries they scored. You had the Robbie Henshaw moves were quite well worked. The Jack Conan move was just muscular power, first off the back of the scrum to create the position, and then to finish the try. Snyman just being Snyman and being able to score from 10 meters away with his arms. Gibson Park on his chase through, Ringer off the Prendergast break up and offload to Henshaw. So there was a variety to the attack that I quite liked. And the fact that they kept going, that go right up to the end and to be able to play from your own 5 meter line back up to the 22 after 80 minutes of rugby when everyone's tired. And it does feel like the job's done at that stage. 47-21. That was as big a lead as we could have wanted going into that game. And to still be playing for more and wanting to play for more is the kind of attitude you want from those guys. I think there's still lessons to be learned. It'll be very interesting to see what'll happen now when we come up against the heavy hitters who are, obviously at this stage it's Toulouse and it's Bordeaux. In the case of Bordeaux, I think our defense might be suited to shutting them down, and if they can't attack the way they're used to attacking, you saw what Toulouse were able to do to them when they were able to keep them to 3 points or whatever it was in that top 14 final. So it'll be interesting to see how Leinster manage it when they get to that level. And then there's just other little things in an otherwise pretty fantastic performance. I do think Sam Prendergast is sometimes shows how he's still quite young, choosing to carry the ball up a blind alley. That's not the first time I've seen him do that either. He's a big lad. I think he took it personally when people said he wasn't physical. He's well over 6 foot. He's the same height as Keane, actually. He's just not quite as big as him. He's bigger and tall. He's taller and heavier than Jack Crowley. He just looks lighter because because of his height. So I think he's taken it personally as wanting to prove that he's as big and strong as everyone else. But I do think there are better ways to do that than running up blind alleys, particularly for a 10. But I mean, that if that's the biggest complaint you have about someone's game, then you're in a pretty good position. So overall, I thought it was a very good performance across the board. I was happy in the second half to see Gus McCarthy making a break up the left wing. I thought after his really fantastic opening for Ireland, he hadn't been quite as flashy for Leinster in the last few weeks, but that was pretty cool to see him back to that kind of flair. Overall, very good performance. I'm very interested to see what team they put out next week, given the start of Ireland camp and Six Nations. The Stormers are apparently taking that game very seriously. They're going to send a very strong team, and they're not to be trifled with. So looking forward to seeing who we send out for that game and how they manage it. And I would echo Rich's thing. I would love to see Kieran Frawley get the start of that game, because I think it's a crying shame that there can only be 110 starting for Leinster, because there's probably at least 3 who deserve to.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line overview for Leinster was going into this Champions Cup campaign. It was get top 2 seed. That's it, and they did that. And from the point of view of Bath, we got the win. We got the tries we needed. It was sort of a really good crowd as well, over 40,000, and it was just job done on the night. All we can say now is see what happens when Leinster, for Champions Cup wise anyway, comes back. What kind of players we get back after the Six Nations, and how we go from there. But up to now, it's been job done, that's for sure. Well, that's brilliant, lads. Many thanks again to Rich and David for joining me. Hope to have you back on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.